I'm currently here in Bali where we've got rice fields with beautiful views, sunsets on the beach, loads of co-working spaces and cozy cafes, epic drone stock footage. We've got it all. So it's no wonder that this place is a hotspot for digital nomads. Many entrepreneurs either come here or wish they could come here to spend a few months living and working in this paradise. But the problem is, you're not being productive as a digital nomad, at least nowhere near as productive as you could be. And there's actually a good scientific explanation for why this is. So if you think about it, your productivity and in general, anything that creates like a positive, well-balanced, healthy, good lifestyle is mainly a function of your habits. It is the things that you do habitually day by day that make you either productive or unproductive. And of course, productive habits don't just happen by accident. We don't stumble into a great work routine that has us doing focused, undistracted work on our most important tasks every day. This is a habit that we have to build up. And this is where we encounter a serious problem. The book Good Habits, Bad Habits does a great job of explaining essentially the psychological mechanisms of how habits are formed and what habits really are. And one of the most important things for our topic here that we can take away from this book is the idea that our habits are mainly dependent on stable environmental cues. So it is our environment that cues us into repeated habitual behavior. Here's a very simple example of that kind of thing happening. I'm sure you've experienced this, like you walk into the kitchen, you walk over to the fridge, you open the fridge, you check the fridge, even though you're not hungry and you already checked the fridge half an hour ago, you already know what's in there. But you have this habit of going over and checking anyway. So why does this happen? It's because of the environmental cue. You walk into the kitchen, you see the fridge, and that triggers the behavior of walking over and checking, regardless of whether that behavior in this context actually makes sense or not. That's a very simple example of how our environment in general is largely responsible for cueing habitual behavior. Now, the flip side of this is that the most disruptive thing you can do to habits, the most disruptive, destructive thing you can do to a set of good habits you have is change your environment. Pick up and move somewhere else. Now, this can be a good thing. This can work in our favor. Like if you have a bad habit you want to break, the most reliable way to break that bad habit is to change your environment, to get away from the environment where there are these cues that lead you into the behavior you want to stop. So when it comes to breaking bad habits, that's good news. But the problem is, like I said before, we don't accidentally become productive. Our productivity is a function of habits that we have to build up. And every time we move locations, we're basically taking a wrecking ball to all the good habits that we built. And unfortunately, it gets even worse than that because there are some elements of our environment that remain relatively stable even when we move from one place to the next. And unfortunately, that generally works against us because it's generally our bad habits that we easily cue back into. So for example, your phone, right? You always have the same phone with the same apps. You take that with you and it's always there. This is essentially part of your environment that remains stable. And well, most of us don't have good productive phone habits. So if you have a habit of easily getting distracted by your phone and spending hours scrolling through social media or whatever instead of focusing on your work, well, even when you move from one location to the next, that doesn't change. The phone is still there, it's still in your pocket. All the same cues are still there that will get you back into distracted by your phone mode. Another example of this is that in most places, hotel rooms, Airbnbs, apartments, what's very common is that there's going to be a TV in the bedroom opposite the bed. And there's probably going to be Netflix on there. And so even if you've moved halfway across the world and you're in a different room and there's a different bed and so on, it's still similar enough, right? You still have the bed here, the TV over there, your Netflix account, you just have to log in. And so if you have a habit of spending too much time watching TV or watching Netflix late at night instead of getting the sleep you need in order to be productive the next day, even if you've moved halfway across the world, you can probably cue right back in to that bad habit. And one final example here is junk food, right? If you have a habit of eating junk food, well, when you move to a new place, you can probably easily find a McDonald's and a KFC and so on. They have the same menu, they have the same the same kind of environment. You step into one of these places, it's the same as all the others. And so you can fall right back into your habit of eating junk food. Whereas in a new place, you usually have to learn from scratch, where and how do I get healthy, good food around here. So in this way, the principle of how the environment is connected to our habits really works against us when we're digital nomads. And it's important to know this, right? It's important to understand that the environment plays such an important role in our habits and to understand how disruptive a location change is. So far, this has been mostly bad news, but now that you know how the environment interacts with productivity, you can use that to your advantage and become a more productive digital nomad. And here are the 3 steps to doing so. Step 1, we've already halfway done. Step 1 is knowing and planning. So we now already know how our environment and environment changes impact our habits. And then we can implement that by planning before we move. And I've been doing that for a long time. Nowadays, before I move to a new place, I will do some scouting and I'll use Google Maps and Nomad List to figure out, where stuff is. Specifically, I want to know, where are there good cafes with fast Wi-Fi? Where are the co-working spaces? Where are the good gyms? I want to know these kinds of things before I arrive somewhere. And I will pick an apartment to live in based on where this stuff is located. Because my productive habits and my lifestyle are a priority, I would much rather pay a bit more to rent an apartment somewhere where I know this is close to a good co-working space and this is close to a gym where I can get my workouts in, rather than save money on rent but live out in the sticks somewhere where everything that I need to have a good lifestyle is like 20 minutes away. So knowing my way around beforehand is an important part of being more productive as I travel around. Step 2 is to make and follow an arrival checklist. So I've noticed that there are certain things I need to take care of and put in place when I arrive in a new place as quickly as possible. And the longer I put it off, the worse it gets. So I made a checklist in Trello, which I use every time I move. And this checklist contains items like sign up for a gym membership, find at least one good cafe with fast Wi-Fi to work from, get a local SIM card with data, find at least one place that serves healthy food such as smoothies and healthy good salads and things like that, and many other items like that. Your arrival checklist is going to be different from mine. You need to ask yourself, what are the important things that you need to have in place in order to have a really good, smooth, productive lifestyle? And what do you need to get done in order to facilitate that? For me, getting through my arrival checklist is top priority when I get to a new place, because I know that if I don't get this stuff done within the first 1 or 2 days of arriving somewhere, then it just kind of starts dragging out. Right? If I get these things done, I can pretty smoothly transition back into a good, productive lifestyle. If I don't, before I know it, it's been like 2 weeks and I still haven't gone to the gym, and I'm eating junk food because I haven't figured out where to get healthy food yet, and so on. Another important item for me is to figure out where can I record videos and set my things up, set up my camera, my lighting and so on, so that that's ready to go to record videos. That's something that makes a huge difference to my productivity. But of course, if you don't make videos, then that's going to be different for you. So figure out what are the 5 to 10 things you need to get done as soon as possible when you arrive in a new place. Turn that into a checklist and follow that checklist whenever you move. Step 3 is to take as much of your environment with you as you can. Now, this is a bit difficult, right? Because there's only so much stuff you can take with you. But in some cases, you can just take important environmental cues with you. For example, if you want to maintain a meditation habit, well, one thing you could do is you could take a meditation pillow with you. That's small enough and light enough to pack. And whenever you arrive in a new place, you can find a nice spot to put that meditation pillow. And that is your environmental cue. So even though you're in a new place, when you walk in the room, you see the meditation cushion. It's always the same cushion, and that cues you into your meditation habit. Here are a couple of more examples from my experience of how I've managed to take my environment with me. So one thing is for fitness and exercise. So there's some things that are quite easy to take with me. For example, a jump rope that packs very easily. Also resistance bands, and for a long time I even traveled with a small suspension training kit which you can just hang on a door frame, and it allows you to do a bunch of exercises. So that's an example of that packs into a relatively small size where I can kind of have my mini home gym with me. So even if I don't have a gym that I can go to, in any hotel room, all I need is a bit of floor space and a door frame, and I can do my workouts. And as a final example, I also traveled for a while with a little light therapy kit, which is just a little light that you can use to, in the morning, like shine bright light at yourself for about 20 minutes. And this also packs easily. And it has an advantage, first of all, if you're traveling in the Northern Hemisphere during winter time, it can be really helpful because, if you get up in the morning and it's still dark out and it never really gets very bright in some cases, that can really suppress your energy and it's not great for productivity. So having light therapy is a way to kind of take a bit of good weather with you, but also, setting that up somewhere, finding a place to set that up with my laptop next to it, cues me into a series of habits. I start my light therapy in the morning, I do my morning writing and so on. And that is, again, a cue, an environmental cue that I can take with me wherever I am. As with step 2, your specific kit here is going to be different from mine. But think about what are the important habits you want to maintain, and are there any ways in which you can take part of that environmental cue? Can you take something with you that you place in whatever room, whatever apartment you stay in to maintain that environmental cue and maintain your habit? Do these 3 things and you'll find it far easier to stay productive even as you travel around as a digital nomad. All right, let me interrupt myself there for a second and address the obvious elephant in the room. As you can imagine, working on this video has put me in an interesting spot because when I started working on this, the whole COVID-19 thing was a distant concern at most. And now we're in the middle of various lockdowns and travel restrictions and so on. So even if you are a digital nomad or aspire to be one, traveling around a lot and going to co-working spaces and so on is really basically not in the cards for the time being. But I wanted to get this video published anyway, because all of the stuff that I talked about changing your environment to make yourself more productive is extremely important whether you travel a lot or not. And my bonus tip for the end of the video was going to be to travel slow, which really translates to travel less, move around less. And that's something that I've been doing more of. I try to, whenever I move around, stay in one place for at least several months at a time so that I do have the time to set things up and create a good environment for myself. Because again, it's just so important for me and my productivity and in general my healthy and good lifestyle overall. So in the spirit of trying to make the best of a bad situation, since most of us are stuck indoors to some extent or another and stuck in one place, let's make the best of it by actually having a look around and asking ourselves, okay, I'm stuck here. How do I make this environment as productive and as positive as possible for myself? Like, start looking externally, start looking outwards, and see what you can change in your environment to serve your needs and your goals, instead of looking inwards and thinking, well, I have to try harder, I have to do better, I have to use willpower, and so on. The other thing that's on a lot of people's minds, of course, are economic troubles that are brewing right now, and that will probably stay with us for quite a long time, as far as it's predictable right now. And again, this is basically overall a bad thing, but trying to make the best of it, trying to see the best in it, now is a pretty good time to be an online entrepreneur. Now is a good time to not have to go out and show up somewhere and trade your time for money. So if you've already been working on entrepreneurial online projects, now is a good time to invest time into that. See if you can turn your side hustle into more of a full-time income. Because yes, it's difficult. Yes, building the skills you need to be successful at this takes time and is difficult, but it is something that gives you more safety, more security, makes you more resilient against these kinds of uncontrollable factors. So again, if you're stuck indoors, if you, instead of being bored and binge watching Netflix, maybe now is a good time to start shoring up and investing in your online income generating assets. And of course, from my side, I wish you the best of luck with that. Hope you stay healthy and I hope you stay safe. Okay, back to the regular video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any other tips for how to stay productive and how to maintain a great lifestyle while you're traveling, I'd love to hear them. So leave a comment below. So this time around, I actually didn't even see that much of Bali while I was here, because these guys have just been my whole life for the last 8 weeks. But that's a long story.